virtual exchange, developing critical digital literacies. So here is a brief summary of this workshop. It will introduce virtual exchange as an innovative teaching pedagogy, which is based on meaningful and constructive technology-enabled intercultural collaborations. This workshop aims at developing language educators' ability to facilitate their learners' participation and collaboration in culturally diverse online communities and develop their critical digital literacies through virtual exchange. What we hope to achieve today in these 90 minutes is to learn about this pedagogical practice and how it can be embedded in language learning contexts. We will navigate the UniCollaboration platform, which is a very useful website that can help educators initiate and implement virtual exchange projects. We will learn how to add a class in the platform in case you are interested in starting a VE project. And at the end, we will try to design a virtual exchange project, not in its full capacity, of course, because it really takes much time to design such a project, but we will try to brainstorm on its most important elements. As I said, we will start with an introduction to this approach, and we will be discussing critical digital literacies in language instruction. This is followed by some discussion with you, reflection, and sharing your experiences. Then we will demonstrate the UniCollaboration platform and add a class if we are interested in that. And the last part involves some collaborative work in Zoom breakout rooms, designing a virtual exchange project. This workshop will end with a show and tell and provision of peer feedback, discussion, and any questions that may arise. I don't know if you have watched the pre-activity video that I uploaded in Google Classroom, but I think that it's pretty informative, and it gives basic information about what virtual exchange is. Some of you may have heard it with a different name that has been really popular in the last years, which is telecollaboration. But these two terms are more or less the same. So telecollaboration or virtual exchange are terms used to refer to the engagement of groups of learners in online intercultural interactions and collaboration projects with partners from other cultural contexts or geographical locations as an integrated part of their educational programs. I will now provide you with two definitions that have been given of virtual exchange, particularly in language learning contexts. So as Guth and Helm say, it's a web-based interaction which is intended to develop both language skills and intercultural communicative competence. And June, who has done a lot of research in virtual exchange, describes this practice as a process that is mediated by technology through online means, and it presupposes communicating and working with other people individually or in groups in dispersed geographical locations. Now, based on the video that I uploaded in the pre-activity that was prepared by the project Evolve, it was an Erasmus project, I would like to clarify what virtual exchange is not, because it could be confusing with other forms of distance education. So virtual exchange is not a MOOC with no sustained interaction between small groups of students. It is not a distance learning course. It does not mean creating social media groups. Virtual exchange does not mean that does not imply any exchange that is unmoderated, unsustained, and it's not part of a structured program. And it's not a virtual mobility that is closer to distance online education. That is studying abroad at another institution without having to go there. And it has nothing to do with programs that lack sustained pedagogy for interaction, such as programs with only one moment for interaction, like one meeting during the semester or a whole year. So based on this, we understand that virtual exchange presupposes that there is sustained interaction between groups of people for an extended period of time. And this interaction is structured, it's sustained, it's moderated by instructors, and it involves intercultural learning. So we could also conclude that it is a type of virtual mobility, which is increasingly adopted by university educators in Europe, but also all over the world. And it could be considered either as a substitute or even a complement for student physical mobility. So on the title, these are the different names that you could find virtual exchange. So VE, virtual exchange, telecollaboration, online intercultural exchange. This is mostly used in the European context, or some of you may find it or know it with the name COIL, that is collaborative online intercultural learning, mostly used in the United States. There is a lot of research in virtual exchange in the last 20-25 years. Virtual exchange is considered to contribute to a lot of skills development. First of all, it enhances foreign language competences. As students interact in an authentic environment with peers from other parts of the world, they are bound to use language in a real life setting. So this contributes to a communicative approach which places emphasis on authenticity. Of course, it goes without saying that virtual exchange leads to intercultural communicative competence, as people who are brought together, students, teachers, professionals, come from different cultural backgrounds. So participants have the opportunity to experience authentic cross-cultural communication rather than simulated practice. This might lead to an increased awareness of stereotypes. In virtual exchange, there is usually discussion around stereotypes, how we construct and deconstruct cultural stereotypes. So this practice might lead to an increase in the awareness of stereotypes. However, I should say here that sometimes participating in a virtual exchange might actually enhance stereotypes, so it could have the opposite result. Another skill that is developed is media literacy, as learners understand different aspects of media, such as the ones that were mentioned yesterday in yesterday's workshops about licenses and royalty-free images and copyright-free resources. And also they understand how media shape the construction of stereotypes in the way they portray different cultures. Learners also develop learner autonomy and self-esteem. So it is illustrated in research that after participating in an exchange, students feel more confident in using the language, even though they are really reluctant at the beginning, and they feel that they would be making a lot of mistakes in their interactions. At the end, they realize that other people also make mistakes, so they feel more confident in interacting in a real life setting. They also develop competences related to employability, job-related skills, such as participating in international groups. These resemble the kinds of encounters they might find themselves in the future, whereby they might be employed in a firm or in an organization that hires people from different cultural backgrounds. So this is a good preparation for that potential encounter in the future. There is also increased motivation in language learning, mostly because language use is meaningful, it's authentic, and it's more interesting. And there is a growing interest in study abroad. Usually students want to visit the countries of their partners after the exchange, and they look up information and make plans, so they might combine virtual and physical mobility. They also understand how important global partnerships are in solving local and global problems. So there is this acknowledgement that no single country can address problems alone, so no man is an island, and only through global partnerships can we address the current issues that we are all facing in our interconnected world. This adds an aspect of internationalization in the curriculum. This is what educators in higher education are striving to do in the last years through physical mobility, participation in Erasmus programs, study abroad. So this gives an opportunity to students who are not mobile and who may never become mobile to experience internationalization while at home. And of course, it goes without saying that virtual exchange enhances a number of illiteracies, since it's inherently a computer mediated practice. Students develop a lot of competences in relation to digital skills, such as online communication, content creation, sharing. They learn about netiquette, participation in online communities, and a lot of other skills. However, virtual exchange has received some criticism in the last years, in that it is claimed that students do not really participate in meaningful interactions. They just exchange exotic information about themselves, and the partnership does not really contribute to deep intercultural learning. A lot of researchers in the last years have expressed some concerns about the authenticity of the exchanges and the extent to which these exchanges help students develop real intercultural competence. And it's true that some of the exchanges are limited to simple exchange of information about themselves. So students say, we celebrate Carnival in February, and their partners say, oh, we have a similar event in Spain, it's called Las Falas, and we cook paella. Okay, we also have this dish in our country, and this is not real intercultural interaction. So the latest trend is guiding participants of virtual exchange projects. First of all, beyond the functional uses of technology. So the virtual exchange project is now changing direction from mere use of technology to communicate at a superficial level with partners, to a more critical digital literacy approach. Critical digital literacy links digital activity to the concepts of freedom, democracy, and civic engagement. In other words, the acquisition of technical skills is used in order to engage with the society and accomplish positive changes both for the individual and the broader social context. This echoes the concept of digital citizenship, whereby students become digital makers in order to improve the situation of others or of the local community. This is in line with the emerging nature of digital literacies, which can support educational, professional, personal, social, and civic lives. This is also in line with the ecological approaches to language learning, which view language learning and use as an effort to promote democratic participation and the overcoming of social injustices. Um, I don't know if you are familiar with this framework of digital literacies that came out in 2013 by Pegram, Hockley, and Dutney, and they list a number of literacies that can and should be developed in education. Well, the three authors, 5 years later, reconsidered this framework um, due to the changes in the social landscape because of so much interconnectivity that characterizes our world, and this prolific use of global communication, and they reformulated this framework by adding some more literacies. Some of the added literacies were ethical literacy and critical literacy, and these are very much related to what we are discussing today. So ethical literacy is related to how responsibly and constructively we use online communication. How do we communicate with the others online, in online communities, especially in contexts that are characterized by linguistic differences or political or social differences? And critical literacy is related to how we use technology to promote democratic participation, social values, and to promote justice in the world. So there is a new trend, in other words, that leads to the use of technology beyond the functional operations. So it's great to learn to use a Google document, for example, or make a post in an online forum. But why do you do that? And how will this action on the web contribute to a better future for you or the others? Okay, now going back to virtual exchange, I don't know how familiar you are with this practice. I will find out later, but I will just give you the basics of how this works in terms of modes and configurations. So virtual exchanges are either educator-led, collaboratively designed by two or more educators in different geographical contexts, or they are ready-made protocols that are led by organizations, and that's an example is Solilla Connect program that I will explain later. Virtual exchange takes place inside or outside the classroom with online and offline work, or between online and offline. It involves the use of a variety of Web 2.2 technology tools. It definitely involves synchronous and or asynchronous communication. It can run in independent contexts or in blended learning setups. And it can take the form of an e-tandem, monolingual, or lingua franca exchanges, and I will give you more information about this later. And here are some examples of virtual exchange setups. For example, a class of learners in the UK collaborate with a class of learners in France using both English and French. This is a bilingual exchange. It's also called a tandem exchange. in which the students take on the role of a student in the case of speaking the language, the target language, and also act as tutors for their partners who are learning their language. So the emphasis in this exchange is linguistic development, and students, teachers who decide to implement a tandem project, they do it because they want to expose their learners in an authentic environment, interacting with native speakers of the target language. And there is a sort of mutuality in these exchanges. So I give you and I get back from you. Another example is a class of learners of English in Greece collaborate with a class of English in Spain using English. So using English as a lingua franca. This is a lingua franca type of exchange whereby emphasis is on the target language, but also intercultural interactivity. Another example is content-based exchange, which is also becoming very popular in the last years. For example, a class of biomedical students learning English for specific purposes in Glasgow collaborate with a class of biomedical students learning English for specific purposes in Gaza. So the emphasis is on language learning for discipline-specific purposes. And also there is a lot of interculturality again involved. Now, as I said earlier, there were some researchers that thought that this kind of exchanges are not authentic because they take place in a simulated environment that is controlled by the educators. So some practitioners decided to go a step further and involve their learners in authentic groups out there in the world, in the wilds, as they are called, in the digital wilds. And an example is a case of students who were asked to post and receive messages to a forum on the website of the French newspaper Le Monde. These were students of journalism who were taking French as a foreign language, and they were asked to participate in a real, in an authentic forum, interacting asynchronously with the journalists who wrote articles on the specific French newspaper website. And finally, another example is to engage your students in online facilitated dialogue around conflicting topics with other students from Western and Arab countries. This is the Solilla Connect program, which takes place all year round, and you can choose to join a class there with your students. And students are paired with other students in different parts of the world, and the emphasis is a discussion on divisive topics. So the students do not just talk about their cultural experiences or where they have traveled or what kind of local dishes they prepare or fashion. They talk about topics that are conflicting, such as terrorism or religion or abortion and other similar discussion topics. Okay, virtual exchange is a really exciting and it's a unique experience for students, but there are some difficulties in implementation. First of all, it takes a lot of time to organize, to set up and run the exchanges. Some educators have difficulties in integrating the exchange in their course, in the syllabus, and also assessment is an issue. Mainly because teachers do not really know what to assess and how to assess their students' outputs. On the one hand, they want to assess them in a way so as to motivate them to participate, but again, they don't want to penalize their students for any mistakes they might make in language use. because they appreciate their participation in responding to their partners and collaborating with them in developing different artifacts. Lack of pedagogical knowledge, teachers' lack of illiteracies, because there is a lot of technological use involved, synchronous, asynchronous, and other types of technologies that are used. Difficulty in finding appropriate partners. That's one of the main reasons I think that teachers might decide to opt out. Low levels of participation on the student part. There could be some indifference and lack of mutuality, and sometimes there is tension, there is conflict, there are arguments taking place. But as many researchers say, these conflicting situations should not be considered as a problem. In fact, they should be viewed as rich points of intercultural learning. Some institutional constraints or misalignment of academic calendars, challenges with scheduling, ineffective task design. This task design is the backbone of a virtual exchange, and we will be talking about this later. Differences in time zones, for example, setting up an exchange between let's say Italy and Thailand or Japan. There is a lot of time difference, and educators have to consider that because synchronous communication might not be easy for the students. The lengths of exchange, sometimes exchanges are too short or too long and they drag and the students are tired. Differences in project goals, differences in linguistic proficiencies or academic performance among the partner classes. Therefore, the teachers who decide to start a virtual exchange project should have a lot of competences developed, or should be willing to develop at least better pedagogical competences, so as to align the virtual exchange with the pedagogical goals. Organizational, managerial, the virtual exchange is a whole project, so people should know how to handle a big project taking place in their classrooms. Digital competences is because of the technological implications. But most importantly, the teachers should have themselves an attitude, an open attitude towards other cultures. The exchange begins the moment the partnership is formed between the 2 or 3 or more educators. So these educators should be willing to challenge their own stereotypes and be willing to learn from different cultural perspectives. For those interested in virtual exchanges, there is a lot of support that you can find online. There is the Uni-Collaboration platform. We will visit it later. It's a really useful website that provides support for initiating projects. There is the Erasmus Plus virtual exchange project that encourages youth to take part in exchanges. There is the SUNY Center for Collaborative Online International Learning, the COIL that we mentioned earlier, that is mostly based in the United States and provides training for starting virtual exchange projects. Similarly, the Stevens Initiative and the Virtual Exchange Coalition are organizations that have been set up in the last years in support of educators who are willing to go ahead with the virtual exchange projects. Now, it is now time to hear from you and discuss, probably through unmuting your microphones or writing on the chat. So I will now stop sharing, and so that I'm able to look at any ideas that you may have, reflect and share your experiences. And to initiate the discussion, I will start with a poll with 3 questions. The first, and I don't know, okay, let me see. Can you see the three questions now? The first one is, have you ever implemented a virtual exchange or collaboration project? So you can answer with a yes or a no. Why would you decide to implement a virtual exchange project in your teaching context? Please pick only one, pick the most important reason for you: to develop my students' language skills, to develop my students' intercultural skills, to develop my students' illiteracies, internationalize my course curriculum, to develop my professional skills, or other, and we can discuss other if you want. And the last question is, which of the following statement best describes the reason you would not initiate a VE project? Just pick one, please. So I don't think it would help my students develop their skills. My students would feel uncomfortable interacting with others from other cultures. I need to be trained first in managing a VE project. It takes too much time to organize, or I don't think I would find a suitable partner teacher. So I will just leave it for a couple of minutes. Yeah, just looking at your responses, and I see that some of you have, in fact, implemented telecollaboration projects in the past, which is good to know. So I have 11 votes, and we are 16 here. Okay, 15 excluding me. So I will just wait a couple of maybe one.
Anna, may I ask you something? Sorry for interrupting you. Should we just click on the answer then? I'm not sure whether my answers were recorded. That's why I'm asking.
Alice, I think that you may not be able to vote because you're co-host.
Okay, that's why. Because I've been trying to do so, and
I know it happened yesterday with your workshop. I couldn't vote. No, not with you, with Maria's.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for this.
Yes. Okay, then. So we're almost done here. I think I will end the polling now and share the results with you. I think I should share my screen to show them.
Yes, we see it, Anna.
Okay, right. So I see that 3 of you have implemented a project before, and I would like to hear your opinions now or later on, your experience. And the most important reason for you to start a virtual exchange project is to develop your students' intercultural skills. I think that this is the reason this pedagogical practice was introduced in the first place, and it still places a lot of emphasis on that, besides other skills that it develops along the way. And the reason you would not initiate a virtual exchange project is I need to be trained first in managing a virtual exchange project, and it takes too much time. Yes, indeed, that would be a factor, a serious, actually. We are also busy with our courses, with our teaching, and it really takes a lot of time to prepare. And I don't think I would find a suitable partner teacher. Well, hopefully we will help a little bit in that today. Okay. Is there any comment in the chat box? Mike, you say disenfranchised, the empowered, very revolutionary.
Sorry,
yes.
That was just a joke about the Zoom process that the moderators don't get a vote.
Okay, but actually it can help towards the empowerment of the oppressed. I don't know if this is something that you wanted to imply. It's in line with the critical pedagogy that places emphasis on looking at the social injustices and how the oppressed people of the world can be empowered to speak out and voice their, let's say, their concerns about the world and their rights.
Yes, I think you're giving a very generous intellectual turn to my comment.
Okay. All right, then now, so what's next? Okay, some of you said that you may find difficulties in finding a partner. Well, there are things that can be done about this, and on the next in the next slides, I will show you around. I will try to navigate with you in the Uni-Collaboration platform, whereby you can actually find a partner and start setting up an exchange. And there is a lot of resource material to look at in this particular website. So here I am, it's unicollaboration.org. I have already logged in earlier on so that we don't lose precious time. You can visit this website either now as we speak or later on at your own pace. So once you register, you can set up your profile, and so that people can identify you and maybe relate with you towards designing an exchange. So you add your institution, any languages you speak, email, and contact details. What you can find in this website is interesting information about research going on in virtual exchange and conferences and training opportunities. Some of you said that you need training in order to manage such a project. You can have a look at ongoing and previous projects conducted in the area of telecollaboration. And the most important bit in this website is the resources that they offer, and they are really useful. So you can find bibliography, tasks. There is a tasks data bank, task sequences, sample projects that you can look at to get ideas. And to find a partner, you simply click here. And this was a lifesaver for me when I wanted to do my first exchange and I couldn't find a partner through my professional circle abroad. I found this website that was actually the result of a research project. And I found my partner here, who is actually my partner even today in the virtual exchange projects that we've run in the last 4 years. So finding a virtual exchange partner, so you go here and you look at the open proposals that colleagues from around the world have uploaded. So each entry comes with a title, a description, and the author, and the period they would want the exchange to run through. So if we click on the first one, just to look at an example, we have, so there is somebody that would like to set up a virtual exchange for B1, B2 students of English for purposes of international communication. I'm extremely flexible as to the content and can integrate any theme into my course. I am experienced in VE in both English for purposes of international communication and for pre-service English teachers. I'm also an expert in materials design, so welcome motivated and dedicated partners with little to no experience in VE. I am flexible as to the dates, anytime between late October to January 15th. And here is the name of the person who is in Tel Aviv University. And these are the learning outcomes that the exchange aspires to develop: digital literacy, language skills, intercultural competences, transversal soft skills. Students would be interacting in English, and these are the disciplines, the number of students they would like to involve, the period, and the person that you should contact if you're interested in pairing your students up with this group. If none of these proposals meet your own expectations and project goals, you can create your own virtual exchange proposal by going to my account. Right below your profile, you click on virtual exchange proposal, and you complete these fields that pop up. So you select your institution, describe your project, check the expected learning outcomes of the exchange, choose the selected language that students will be speaking during the exchange, and add any additional info about maybe CFR level of the students, the discipline, how many students you want to involve, the period, and you submit, and then you pray that somebody is interested in your proposal and contacts you to make an initial contact. And if you agree on different terms and goals and everything, technologies, then you can start setting up the exchange. So this is the Uni Collaboration platform. It's very easy to use, very, very useful for people who are interested in setting up an exchange. However, as you saw, there are some fields to fill in. I have this information here in the slides, so we'll just move on. To design a virtual exchange project, yes, Maria, there are some search filters that you can use to limit, let's say, the options there. You can choose the language, the level, or the discipline, so you can just filter out some of the options. Okay, to design a virtual... All right. Okay, so as you said, you need to have thought about the project goals and the learning outcomes before even going on to that platform. So what are your personal goals as an educator for your group of students? What do you want to develop? Linguistic competence? Do you want to place emphasis on illiteracies, on intercultural communicative competence, global competence, active citizenship, the 21st century skills, or transversal or soft skills such as collaboration or adaptability or responsibility, entrepreneurship? These are more recent, let's say, emphasized in different frameworks, or discipline specific skills if you're teaching a group of learners that are focused on a specific discipline. Some models and frameworks that can help you get some inspiration on different goals, especially with regard to critical digital literacy perspectives, are the PISA OECD Global Competence Framework, which includes competences such as engaging in open, appropriate, and effective interactions across cultures, and taking action for collective well-being and sustainable development. Or the Council of Europe's key competences framework that includes competences such as civic mindedness, action in the world, promoting change and advocating positive changes in local communities and abroad. Two more frameworks that I find really inspiring are the competences for democratic culture on the left, that was inspired by 50 other frameworks. It was created by the Council of Europe in 2016, and it involves competences, 20 competences that fall under the main categories of values, attitudes, skills, knowledge, and critical understanding. And the Sustainable Development Goals framework that can be really useful into guiding your classes in general, but also the design of an exchange with a critical perspective, as it is a framework developed by the United Nations, composed of 16 global goals towards creating a better future for all, and a 17th goal that focuses on international partnerships for promoting these goals. So the goals include no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, and many others. So this may sound too romantic, but I think that as language educators, we, more than any other discipline, can actually work towards that direction and promote all these goals through our instruction. Another thing that you should think of is who you want to involve, who are your stakeholders. So if you're in secondary education, or do you want to involve your tertiary education students, following general language education courses, or LSP, or even CLIL courses. Perhaps you might want to involve your Erasmus students before they travel to their, before they start their mobility actions in a European country, or future study abroad students who might go for a master's degree abroad, and you might want to involve them in an exchange before that. Virtual exchange has also been used in teacher education a lot, involving pre-service teachers or teachers taking initial teacher training courses, or even in-service teachers who want to develop their continuous professional skills. You might involve mentors or professionals, such as the case we saw earlier with the students posting in Le Monde's website. Another thing to consider is duration. Do you want to run a short exchange for 4 weeks, let's say, or an extended exchange for a whole semester or 2 semesters? Number of students is an important element. So how many do you want to involve? You might want to start with a small number to begin with in order to handle the project more effectively. And the linguistic level is really important. Language configuration. Do you want to run a tandem exchange with the mutuality that we explained earlier, involving two target languages, or one language, or a lingua franca exchange? Now, task sequence is really important, and we would explore this a little bit. So exchanges usually have 3 phases. That's the introduction phase, comparative phase, and the intense negotiation phase. So the tasks usually build upon the previous tasks incrementally, changing the level of difficulty and the level of technological mediation involved. You could follow Salmon's 5-stage of activities model, which comprises access and motivation stage, socialization stage, information exchange, knowledge construction, and the development stage. Now, there is a very well-known typology that came out by O'Dowd and Ware, who have done an amazing job in virtual exchange, who classify tasks in information exchange, tasks. This could involve the authoring of cultural autobiographies, exchanging story collections, sharing views, sharing perspectives. Comparison and analysis tasks, comparing parallel texts, translating, comparing practices in different cultural contexts. And the last type is the most challenging one. It's collaboration, where the students need to collaborate and create a product together. Some critical digital literacy tasks could involve discussion on divisive topics, conflicting topics that we mentioned earlier, a poster creation to raise awareness, creation of leaflets and distribution to community, a crowdfunding campaign, work towards solving a community problem, website creation to inform the community or create a blog, design and administer a survey, for example, about voting in the European elections, digital storytelling with a social message. These are just a few examples. And perhaps I could give an example here in a school in an exchange that involves students from the UK and Argentina. The students were asked to work together and create leaflets to be distributed in local communities, raising awareness about previous conflict that these two countries went through in the Malvinas War. So they both decided to raise awareness for peace and forget about past conflict, and they designed leaflets that they distributed in their local communities. You need to consider technological mediation in your virtual exchange projects. It could be synchronous and or asynchronous. Usually we combine both. Earlier exchanges were relied on text-based collaboration, discussion forums, video conferencing platforms, collaborative writing tools such as Google Docs, email for communication, social media groups in Facebook, or microblogging such as Twitter, the use of learning management systems for local management of a project, presentation software you want to use like Prezi or PowerPoint, video making software for creating digital stories, games. And lately there is a trend towards the use of 3D worlds, immersive technologies in virtual exchange, so as to involve the students in a more, let's say, immersive environment and give it a more playful direction. Some of the students' outputs that you might want to assess are email exchanges, posts, comments on forums or social media, synchronous conversations, the documents they produce, for example, essays, reports, scripts for digital stories, translations, multimedia products such as websites, PowerPoint presentations, Prezi presentations, videos, digital stories, or reflective diaries. I will now very quickly give you an example of a virtual exchange project that I ran 3 years ago. It's the Youth Entrepreneurship for Society project, which aimed at building my university students' discipline-specific language in the area of business English, intercultural competence, global citizenship, and entrepreneurship. I worked with my partner in Spain, and we brought together our English for specific purposes students who were studying business-related degrees at a level of B1, B2, and the students interacted for a whole semester, that is 13 weeks. They used English as a lingua franca in their communication. And this is, in a nutshell, my task sequence. As an information exchange in this category, there was, the students had to prepare an introductory video introducing themselves. Then they exchanged views about language memories and think of a moment when the language was really important in their lives, and in fact it was a lifesaver. We had used the example of the Thai cave rescue story. I don't know if you're familiar with that. A couple of years ago, when some students went on a field trip and they were found themselves in a cave with their instructor, and the only student who could speak English was the one who communicated with the rescuers and provided them with valuable information that contributed to their rescue. So that was a case when language proved to be really important. They also discussed stereotypes after viewing videos such as the DNA journey and the danger of a single story. In the comparison and analysis phase, they compared the country's contribution to the world after watching a TED talk which discusses that, and they compared entrepreneurial initiatives in their contexts, visiting local websites of NGOs and volunteer groups. And in the last phase, they collaborated and created together a digital story, an elevator pitch, and an investor's report. Remember, they were students of business. And all this was mediated through Google applications mostly. Here is an example of the main outputs of this exchange, which were digital stories demonstrating innovative products that aspire to address a social problem that was pointed out by the NGO mentors that were involved in the exchange. For example, they came up with ideas of a product that would reduce plastic waste, or a product that, an application for the adoption of stray dogs, and other similar ideas. Now, okay, I would like to now move on to the last but one phase, which is to involve you in a brainstorming session, whereby you will be discussing the potential ideas for a future virtual exchange project. I will try to assign you in different groups, and depending on the breakout room you will be assigned, you will have to find the document in the classroom, in the Google Classroom. There are, in the assignments section, there are 4 documents, one for group 1, group 2, group 3, and group 4. So are there any questions before that? So basically what I want you to do is consider a number of elements that you would like to brainstorm on for a future virtual exchange project. In each group, there is a specific scenario that you will have to follow. However, if you want to make modifications on the scenario, please feel free to do so if it's not related to your context. We will stay in the breakout rooms for about 15 minutes, and I will be visiting you for any assistance, and then we can come back and discuss your ideas.